Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Female Perspectives at Wharton. I'm Barb Kraft, Director of Admissions for the Wharton MBA program for executives in San Francisco, and I am super excited about tonight's webinar. We have a fantastic panel in store for you. If you would, please post your chat questions throughout the webinar. We'll get to all we can. We have Laura Nash from our team on the back end helping to support, and she'll answer some of those questions for you as well and be watching the chat. So with that, though, I do want to hand it over to my counterpart in Philadelphia, Diane Sharp.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks, Barb. So yeah, I would like to just start by giving you a brief overview of the program for those who are still kind of in the early stages of looking. Basically, if you decide that you'd like to earn a Wharton MBA, but you're moving along in your career, you're not interested in jumping off, you've got some great managerial leadership experience, then you're in luck. You have the opportunity to earn it while you continue working, and you have the choice of the San Francisco or the Philadelphia campus. It is one program, just two places to earn it. And we're also one admissions committee. Barb is, kind of on the ground for those aiming west, and I'm on the ground for east. But when it comes time to make our decisions, we're in the same virtual room doing that these days. So please reach out to us. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll understand that we really want to engage with you and make you understand what you're getting into. And Barb and I can give you those administrative and admissions perspectives, but the women here tonight and other WEMBAs, as we call them, can offer that inside perspective. That's so important, and we want to make sure you get that, especially these days. We're not able to offer in-person events quite yet. Things are looking good at the university, but we're playing it safe. So we've got round one deadline coming up a week from today, December 8th. I know some of you are probably aiming for that, and hopefully you're not too stressed and just going to use the upcoming weekend to tweak things. Then we have round two in February 9th. And the program starts May 22nd, and we start on the University of Pennsylvania campus, which is great. We've got the cohort from San Francisco and the cohort from Philly all starting together. So we have over 200 WEMBA students running around for the last week in May. It's really neat. And then we also offer a week or so marketing simulation in San Francisco where the East students go west. So as you can see, we consider it one big happy family, and there's a lot of built-in ways to engage with each other from coast to coast. So we want to make sure you understand what it takes to be admitted as well. We've got a lot of good resources on the web, and we want to chat with you for your specific questions. If you haven't had a phone chat with a member of the committee, the quickest way to get on the calendar for that is to just reach out via email. There's also a chat form, but that tends to get backed up with available slots. But please just reach out and ask your questions. We're basically asking our candidates to have the same qualifications as the full-time MBA candidates, because our professors, they're not changing a thing. In fact, they have higher expectations of you guys, you gals, and they actually kind of want you to bring with you the work experience, that back and forth, which is what makes our program so special. But we do have to make sure you're ready to hit the ground running. A lot of you are going to be very rusty, right? It's been a while since you've done a few of those academic skills. So Barb and I would love to engage with you now so we can help you get the rust off before the program starts. All right, so hopefully you've gotten a little nuggets there, and we're here to help. And as Barb said, please post your questions. We'll get as many answered as we can. So now I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. I think tonight, if we could, why don't we go alphabetically? So Raynell Grace, if you wouldn't mind starting and sharing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raynell Grace, and as of 3 days ago, I haven't updated my LinkedIn yet. I am working at Vanguard and leading our investment stewardship function for the Americas. So I've been at Vanguard since I left WIMBA. I was a career switcher, and I graduated in 2015.
Thank you. So Mercede, you would be next.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Mercede Hutton. I'm a senior manager at Dell Technologies based out of Seattle, Washington. I head up, I'm a strategist in corporate sustainability and ESG, and I graduated just recently, May 2021.
All right, Nadia.
Hi, my name is Nadia Arbalskaya. I'm actually originally from Russia. I grew up in this tiny, tiny village, came to the US to go to college. I worked in investment management for about 10 years, building public equity portfolios, and then joined Wharton for a couple years, also switched careers, and now I work in executive recruiting, and I help fintech companies hire CEOs and also VC firms hire partners. And I'm based in SF, and I graduated last year, I guess.
Thank you. And Erin.
I'm Erin Talbot, and Raynell, congrats on your new role. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
I graduated from the Philadelphia campus in 2017, so I was the 41st graduating class of the executive program. I also was a career switcher. I switched a few times in the 4 years since I've graduated, but I moved from credit risk management when I started the program to now general management. And I'm currently creating a new business vertical for a real estate investment firm based out of New York. And I live in San Diego with my husband, who did the program immediately after I did. I was East Coast and he was West Coast, and there was a week between our two programs, and our two boys who are 8 and 5.
Thank you. We're so happy to have all you. You are amazing women. Let's get this started. I'm just going to kick it off, and why don't we go in the same order with the question of why at the time did it feel like it was right for you in your career to get an MBA, and in particular, why a Wharton MBA?
For me, I had always wanted my MBA. You know, I was in 8th grade. You could have asked me what I want to do when I grew up, and I would have said I want to be a business person. And so I wanted my JD MBA actually. And so in my mid 20s, I contemplated going back for a full-time MBA. At that point, I was not considering Wharton. I thought Wharton was this kind of stuffy finance school. Turns out it's not, but at the time I thought it was that. And I missed the boat to go back full time. I had started a company and had just gotten on with my life. And by the time I had looked up from running my company 7 years later, I just felt like I was a little bit aged out. I was hiring freshly minted MBAs to work for me. And so I thought I had aged out a little bit of going full time, but I still wanted the MBA education. Prior to the program, I had recently gotten married, and I started thinking about, gosh, if we're going to have kids in the next couple of years, when am I ever going to squeeze this in? And so I squeezed it in right after I got married, right before I had my daughter, and just as I was selling my business.
I'll jump in after Raynell. I did not know I wanted to get an MBA all my life, so it's not fortunately blessed like that. But as soon as I arrived at Dell about 6 years ago, prior to that, I've been working for nonprofits and small organizations, and I jumped into this big organization, and I realized I'm missing something. What is it? And come to find out, it might have been an MBA. But I was told by most of my managers that I wasn't. It's okay. I was going to be okay without an MBA. But then I was finally sitting down across from my SVP who went to Harvard, and I was like, hey, I really want to get an MBA. And she was the first person who said, do it. Yes, I'll write your sponsor letter. Let's get you going. Let's do this. And so that was kind of the aha moment for me. But what was also happening at that time is I was pivoting out of this career in marketing to get into social impact, ESG, corporate sustainability. And I thought this would be a really amazing time to bring in that financial acumen, the data analytics that I really wanted for myself that I was lacking in, but I also thought was missing from the social impact field itself. So for me, it was why Wharton, because yeah, it's a big old finance school known for that, but many other things too. But I really wanted to double click into those areas that were a weakness for me, like data analytics and finance, and fill those gaps where there was a school that was really strong in these areas. And just incidentally, I was doing my research into all those other schools and programs. This program had the best female to male ratio, which was really important to me.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. For me, I worked, like I mentioned, in investment management, and I worked with institutional investors, so really big pools of money. And I kind of hit that level where to gain more credibility with the investors and to reach the next level in my career, I basically had to have an MBA. So that was the forcing function. And then as far as why Wharton, again, in finance, in many other areas as well, I think you get the most value if you get the best program. And I wasn't going to quit my job because, again, I come from very humble beginnings and I wanted to continue to work. And then Wharton basically was the only program that offered this. And then looking into it further, it was extremely high caliber, amazing network, really good brand. So it made a lot of sense.
I had 15 years of work experience when I entered the Wharton Executive MBA program, and I had been promoted inside of the vertical that I was at E-Trade, which was the bank vertical, but I wanted to move across the company as well and wanted to move over to retail brokerage. I also, when I looked ahead 5 to 10 years, I thought there were still promotional opportunities for me without an MBA, but I didn't think I'd be able to reach a CEO type role without an MBA. And when I was applying to Wharton, I was too shy to admit that I wanted to be a CEO, and attending Wharton gave me the bravado to now sit here in front of you and say that I do want to be a CEO, and the Wharton MBA has empowered me to say that I want that in my professional trajectory and to be confident that I can achieve that.
Yeah, and we have no doubt, so that will happen. Yeah, so you guys have shared, your impetus for attending and what your hopes were. We would love to hear some examples. What things have happened in your career that you don't think you could have done if you didn't have that Wharton MBA?
I don't know if I really answered the question why I looked at Wharton. I probably skipped that part of it. And for me, particularly back in, I guess it would have been 2013 when I was applying, it was the only program that had the credibility of kind of a real MBA at the executive level. Maybe there are some other programs that approximate, but Wharton, the brand is just, it's undeniable. And so to answer the question that you've now asked, Diane, the Wharton experience was life-changing for me. Vanguard would not have hired me with my credentials prior to Wharton had I not gone to Wharton. They found me there. Some of my classmates worked there, and they hired me at a senior position there. Period, full stop, end of story. In addition to that, I had been involved in some nonprofits kind of for fun for years and years and years. And the second I put Wharton on my LinkedIn, I went from, oh, help us volunteer with this nonprofit to, hey, can you come in and talk to our board of directors? And the only thing that changed was I had a Wharton degree. And so it just opened doors for me that otherwise I wouldn't have had access to. So it was completely life-changing for me. I never would have been hired at Vanguard. Since being at Vanguard, I've rotated around quite a bit, and I've had opportunities that I otherwise would never have had. I'm currently, over the course of the last couple of years, I've flirted with the idea of getting a CFA, and I was a career switcher. I had done engineering before. I had been a business owner. I did nothing in the financial services world. So I flirted with getting a CFA, and my colleagues are like, you're senior already. You went to Wharton, you don't need to prove yourself anymore. And so it's been completely life-changing for me. Some of us have hinted that maybe our company sponsored us. I was paying my own way, but I will tell you that my signing bonus alone, my bonuses that I was eligible for within that first year or two in switching my career made it worth it.
I will second that.
So I'm just coming out of graduating, and I wouldn't say like anything has drastically changed yet. I don't have intentions of leaving Dell, and we're looking at my 5-year plan, and my SVP has some pretty high aspirations for me. So I'm happy where I am. It's not necessarily about like moving around companies, but I would say, for me, it's been more of like that bravado, the term you used, Erin. I love that. Like just giving me the confidence that I can think bigger and I can go I'm into the room and I do have something to say and I am going to speak up. So having that confidence, that bravado about, what I do know and what I can contribute and my value, I think has been life-changing for me. And just thinking about my career track that way. So I'd say that's been like the glass ceiling opening and breaking open has been the big impact. But, also, I just got done. So that means I was in school during the pandemic. And when the whole kind of program went virtual, but it was, it might say like, oh, it wasn't a good timing, but it actually was wonderful timing for me because I was able to stay focused. I was able to like have something I was driving toward, inspired to complete, and not feeling like just the world was kind of crumbling apart because I had something there that I was working through. So that too for me was very life-changing.
Awesome. I'd echo all of that. I think the bravado, the self-confidence that it provides is huge. The perception definitely changes. Like I said, once our investors found out that this is what I was doing, that I actually eventually got the degree, there's totally different perception in the way people listen to you and the way you're received as well. I wish it wasn't like that, but it is, at least in finance. And then today, the majority of my day is spent with CEOs on the phone, figuring out what they do and how they do it. And the perception is great, but also the actual knowledge and being able to speak to various aspects of the business, marketing, product, accounting, strategy, whatever you want, in an educated way is really, really big as well for me.
The 3 roles that I've had after graduation have all been general manager / president of overseeing an entire function and overseeing the P&L of a function. And that's a path that I was not on when I entered Wharton. So for me, it accomplished exactly what I set out to get from it, which was the ability to gain breadth in the job responsibilities that I have. And then I'll comment also because Raynell had mentioned sponsorship. I was sponsored. And then when I pivoted and switched employers, the next employer bought out the obligation to the employer who had sponsored me. And then when the startup that I went to eventually couldn't, I wrote a check to pay back the obligation. So I eventually paid for the Wharton degree. We paid for my husband's. We would do it all over again. It is a phenomenal investment. I can't say enough about the return on that investment.
Yeah, and then that's a big hesitation we hear, especially among women, probably to no one's surprise here on this call tonight. So it's an investment in yourself and it will pay off. You have to be comfortable with that. And there's many ways it manifests itself at the end of it all, but it's always going to be a positive return on your investment.
And I always am encouraging candidates out there to make the ask of your company. The worst is they say no, or you leave the door open to come back and ask again 6 months from now when they start seeing the value and that you're able to contribute, and really making that ask from the standpoint of how much better you will be as an employee, that you're not just doing this for yourself, but you're doing it to make stronger contributions within the organization, and being really thoughtful about that pitch. I'm sure any of these women here would help you if you needed some pointers, but you should make the ask. We have a question here, and I know a few of you have children, and this is a question that comes very often from women, is that how did you juggle? I think right now you were going ninja into another room there to grab another computer as we were trying to get set up and get going so that you wouldn't disrupt anyone or a child that was sleeping or ready for bed. But really, any pointers out there about how you managed to work through all of this and juggle a family along with what's equivalent to a full-time MBA and a full-time demanding career?
Erin, I think you were in with children. I didn't have mine until after, but I can talk about some of my colleagues. Erin, do you want to go first?
Sure. So my first son was 2 when I started the program. I was pregnant for the totality of the first year. I almost delivered our second child in class. I didn't. It would have been fine if I did. We had 11 doctors in the class. Would have been totally,
Automatically admitted.
yeah, like everybody would have been safe.
Credit.
Everybody, it's not easy for anybody to do the program, right? It's a really hard program. That's part of what makes it very valuable. That's part of what makes the alumni network so valuable, is because anybody who went through the executive program, you know what they are capable of, and they know what you are capable of. And that is the foundation for that network. So it's hard for everybody. If you are a woman and you're thinking about growing your family, or you're already growing your family, I'd say be really thoughtful about how and what you're going to prioritize. You can't do everything. You just can't. So make sure that your team is set up at work, and make sure that you have delegates at work at your team who are ready to take on more from you. That's a great opportunity for them. Like, make sure that you're setting them up for success and that they can take on more. For us, we had to move into a bigger home so that we could get live-in childcare. who could stay with us for the 2 years and help out more. So recognize that you're going to have to take some thoughtful steps on setting your support structure up at work and home, because there'll be more demands on your time.
And I'll jump in here. I've got 2 boys, so they are now 9 and 12, but when I started, they were 7 and 10. And, you know, I saw this as a big opportunity as a woman to show my sons that I have a place at the table, or whatever we want to call this, in the room, or whatever it is, but to show them that this is what it looks like. And I know that in the future, they will, having been at the ages they were to see their mom go through this, they already, you know, think I'm just like so smart. Like, they'll come to me with all their math problems, and they'll start it with, well, Mom, you went to Wharton, so can you, like, so it definitely, you know, they had this level of respect for what I did and what we went through together as a family. But I totally agree that you have to just have those expectations in place, that there are going to be some things as you juggle that you have to drop. And if they're like made out of rubber, then you know that they're not going to break when you drop them. They're going to be okay, and you can pick them up maybe a little bit later on as you juggle things. But, you know, just level setting, like, where can I drop? What things can not be in this priority, because you just can't do it all. And I know as women who are even interested in Wharton, you probably are quite capable of it all. It's just that we have to realize there's a capacity that cannot, I mean, Wharton will push it all. So it's why we love this program, and because it asks it all of us. So I just really encourage, you know, get everyone bought in. My kids were allowed for the first time to like swear, because if anyone asked them why Mom was in school, the answer was to shake up. And feeling like there's an it in there, but that's, you know, why Mom was in school, and so they're bought in too. They think this is like a real life-changing thing happening, and it is. So that helped all of us be like hands on deck with this. And I can't say enough of praise for my husband, who absolutely stepped in. He answered all the emails from schools that assume that the mom's going to answer them, or that the mom's going to coordinate. Like, he jumped in with sports, he jumped in with all the things that I just said I can't. So it takes partnership. It takes partnership at all the family level and at work, as Erin pointed out, finding those balances and those limitations and drawing some lines.
Yeah, and related to this, someone mentioned that, yeah, this is an important topic for her because she's thinking about family matters as well. So it gives her hope that she doesn't have to put one ahead of the other. It could be simultaneous. So yeah, you've mentioned that you definitely need the support from the home front and the work front. If you wouldn't mind sharing, if you're in class and you do start to go into labor, like what support your class managers have for you and throughout the program, and hopefully your teammates, your classmates, and in particular, if you could share if, you know, the men were pitching in and seemed to get it at all. Any examples there?
I commuted to Philadelphia from Washington, D.C., which was where we lived at the time when I did the program. As soon as I was visibly pregnant, which it was my second, so it didn't take very long before I was visibly pregnant, I didn't carry a suitcase again for the rest of the program. Like, my male classmates would meet me at the train station and make sure that my luggage was taken care of. I don't remember anyone ever letting me cut in front of them in the buffet line, though, at Wharton, which which maybe that's for the better. I would get instant messages during class if I was drinking a Diet Coke that, like, think about the baby and put the Coke down. And my team was incredibly understanding. I think all of us would say that having our team help us through the program, regardless of what our individual challenge is, like, we all need our learning team to help us when work is demanding too much, or home is demanding more than normal. The team steps up, and my team was just amazing to me the whole time.
Yes.
Go ahead, Barb.
I was just going to share that we do divide the class into study groups or teams for the first year of the program based on diversity of backgrounds, industries, life experiences, and they're really there to support one another and mentor one another through that first year of the program, which is the core of the program, which is when everyone is kind of getting their sea legs on. So that can be pretty difficult, and everybody's just getting used to that juggle. We did have a question out here of whether, how did it feel being a woman in the program? Did you feel any different? Was there any more or less of an impact, or resources or special kind of things that you did together as women in the program?
I can jump in on this one. One thing that comes to mind right away is, and this is going to sound very cheesy, I apologize, but I've met really, really incredible women in the program that have literally become my best friends. We text every day, we talk, we FaceTime every few days. We all live in San Francisco, get together for dinners, just this really, really incredibly supportive community of women who are, you know, at the same pace as you are, trying to go to the same place. It's been the biggest impact for me, I think. But as far as treatment, I'm trying to think. I think it felt honestly pretty equal. Kind of once you get in, you're all starting from zero, you're all learning how to use a calculator, and then it didn't really matter.
And Nadia, if I recall, some of the women in your class, you did some special outings just for women, right? Some special get-togethers?
For sure, yeah, we did a few events, and again, we still get together for dinners and try to stay in touch and support each other in any way we can, whether it's career-wise or you need a vent or you just need to get away. It's all on the table for sure.
Some of the men were jealous of that, I remember.
Yes, they were. They don't always have to be invited. It's okay.
I know we had some similar, like we called ourselves the Sassy Lassies, and we would go to, I want to say it's called the Palace. There's a hotel, it's beautiful interior that you would pass by. Well, it's kind of out of the way when you go back to campus in San Francisco. You go back to the Meridian, but we would go there, and some of the guys would be like, "Are we invited?" And we're like, "No, you're not." Next time, maybe.
For obvious reasons.
I want to answer the question a little differently than it was asked. The question was, did we experience anything different as women in the program? But I want to answer it with what I did not experience and contradict that with what I do experience in a professional workplace. So when I'm at work, like I have been mansplained to many times. Like I have been interrupted when I'm talking to my team, when I'm talking to the board, when I'm talking to the exco. I've had my ideas taken and repackaged in the same meeting where I voiced them as if they didn't belong to me. I didn't experience any of that at Wharton. So I experienced my male classmates to not mansplain to me. I experienced the male professors to not mansplain to me. And I experienced that when I had a comment to make in class, I was heard out for all of my comment. And I did not experience any of my male classmates to take ownership of my ideas.
Maybe I just add on one last thing. Not only is it not experiencing mansplaining, but I also didn't feel competition with the other women. So when I'm at work, my day job, there's a little bit of jockeying for who's going to be the woman, the first woman to do whatever. And I didn't feel that at WIMBA. And so there also was a little bit of a sisterhood. At the time, we were the largest class of women that had come through WIMBA. I'm sure you all have had more since our year. But there was a little bit of a sisterhood that still, I was kind of laughing because as I'm sitting here, my group me is flashing. I'm in a women's group from my WIMBA year. We call ourselves WOW, Women of WIMBA -39. It's not that creative. And someone is talking about a trip that she wants to take with our daughter. Another one is talking about she was a CEO recently and is in some litigation where she's trying to get some advice from us on this litigation. I mean, literally, it's business help, it's personal help, it's how did you get your kid to sleep? I mean, it's all of that going on in my group me right now with my Women of WIMBA 39. So, the network is real. I will say personally, maybe I'll give like a slight askew answer. Personally, I didn't feel the community right away, but it was more because I was insecure. And so it was the women kind of pulling me in that eventually got me there. And so I just bring that up to say, for those of you who will get to WIMBA, you'll have the imposter syndrome about all kinds of things. I was the only woman of color in the Philadelphia campus at the time. And it was one of the first times in, 10, 15, 17 years that I did walk in and feel different. And so I hadn't felt different in a long time. And so I did initially. And so it took me a while to kind of shake that off and get brought into the community. And that was no fault of WIMBA, but we all come in with our own insecurities. And I'm happy that during the journey, I found my voice and I found my confidence and I found my tribe.
Nice. We actually have a kind of a neat question here, and I'm going to go ahead and pose it, even though it's not really program related. There's been observation that many of you have nice book collections and so forth. So as a way of getting to know you, if you have any favorite authors, anything that just for fun or inspirational that you'd like to recommend to the women watching.
I actually noticed that when we logged in, I'm the only one who doesn't have books in the background. So I skipped that question.
I'm actually not that cool. I haven't read half of these, but two that are top of mind for me. One of them is Untamed. I'm a Glenn Doyle fan. I just read it, and from page 2, I was like, yes, this is me. I'm Untamed. So We Can Do Hard Things. If you haven't read it, go read it tonight. Literally get like same-day delivery on Amazon or something. And then the second one that comes to mind is I think it's called Unapologetically Ambitious by her last name is Archambault, and she's a CEO, Silicon Valley CEO, who essentially just talked about how she was kind of IBM all the way up to senior vice president, but they weren't going to make her a C-suite. And so she just talked about how to make those decisions to leave IBM, become a CEO, and how she was a trailblazer in that way. I will say it's because of WIMBA I got introduced to that book. It was someone looking for me on LinkedIn who had a WIMBA career connection who said, hey, would you be interested in some executive coaching? I ended up not taking her up on the executive coaching, but she said, hey, if you're interested in being a CEO, like Erin, I now have the confidence to say I want to be a CEO. She said, hey, I can introduce you to Miss Archambault, and you should read her book before you meet with her. And it was just kind of this WIMBA open doors for me to meet this person, and the book kind of came along for the ride.
Right now, I'm making my way through Unleashed, about empowering teams. A favorite from the program is David Pottruck's Stacking the Deck. He used to teach an amazing 1-week course at the program, and Stacking the Deck. If you're going to take on a new job or lead a new business, Stacking the Deck is outstanding. And then I'm a big fan of The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
I've got all of the Brene Brown books. So big one on like Daring Greatly, Dare to Lead. So those are up here. But I also have to say Stu Friedman's books are great. He gave me Parents Who Lead, which is his latest book that he published. It's taking the same mindset as the leadership traits that you learn about in his course, but applying it to parenthood. So also recommend.
So this is great. We're getting lots of really good questions coming in. This one is, how have you engaged as alums? I know you've stayed connected with some of your classmates, but have you participated in any of the clubs, any alumni events? I know we've had a little hiatus on being able to come back and audit classes because we're being very protective of our current students. So we're not able to have guests on campus right now, but in non-COVID times, WIMBA alums can come back and audit classes at any time in their life at no charge. But have any comments on how you've remained close to Wharton after graduation?
I've done business with some WIMBAs. So as I was transitioning out of WIMBA and coming to Vanguard, I at the time owned a company, and one of the other WIMBA alums and I met and ended up going after some government contracts together that were quite lucrative. So I've done business with WIMBAs. And then I also just kind of believe to whom much is given, much is required. And so I always come back for career conversations or anything I can, because As I said, WIMBA was life-changing for me, so I always kind of just hang around to learn from, you know, my peers, but also to give back. So I've already added all these women on LinkedIn, and I'll be bothering them. So it's just kind of a community that, you know, you kind of, once you're plugged in, you don't plug out.
Yeah, I think the thing I asked about in our interviews for the application process was like, you know, what is the mantra for Wharton? And I was told it's you take the call. So whenever someone who's related to Wharton calls you or reaching out, you take it no matter what. And I have definitely experienced that with the alum network. You know, it's just, there's just like someone had said earlier that you know what we've gone through together, and there's just like immediate, like, I see you, and I'll help you however I can. So I would say I've experienced that even in the short time of being an alum, but also, you know, really engaged with my classmates as far as, you know, keeping that bond and working together, potentially putting together a fund, you know, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it doesn't end when you graduate, that's for sure.
For sure. I'll just quickly echo that. When I was thinking about switching careers completely, obviously WIMBA network, amazing, and people are very, very responsive, but just the broader Wharton alumni network is also extremely responsive. I would say at least 80% of my emails were answered, just completely cold emails, finding little connections, and people are really, really receptive.
And just to reiterate, not just professional things, but personal things as well. So some folks in my class went through divorces, and there were WIMBAs who were older than us that we kind of reached out to who had gone through that kind of thing to say, hey, can you help me through that? So it can be good things, it can be bad things, it can be professional, and it can also be personal.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks think you give up on that bonding if you don't do a full-time program, but hopefully you gauged tonight that I think it's actually a bit deeper in our program. It's really neat to see. One of the questions we have is a classic, and for good reason. What would you do differently? Looking back on the experience, anything you would have approached differently or regretted not doing?
I have two. One is I wish I would have formed deeper relationships with my professors at the time. Just at the time I was living in DC and I was rushing to the train and trying to run my company and whatever. And the professors availed themselves to me, and you know, I kind of kept it up, but then I didn't. And so, you know, I don't think it's too late, but at the time I wish I would have just invested in those professorship relationships. One of my professors, my negotiation professor, helped me negotiate my Vanguard offer. And he did a good job. And so, you know, I wish I would have just maintained those relationships a little bit more. And then I alluded to this before. I didn't go in understanding how much the relationships would mean to me afterwards. I skipped the weddings that I was invited to initially, that kind of thing. And so I would just say that the biggest thing I got from Wharton, sure, I learned some things academically, but the bigger thing I learned, they were the relationships. It was the networking. It was the lifelong connection. And so I wish I would have invested in that social connection deeper and sooner.
Any other thoughts?
I wish that I had the space to just be a little more thoughtful about the electives. Wharton does a great job in the elective selection process, and we have access to a lot of different classes and a lot of opportunities. And I was thoughtful about my electives, but there was space for me to be more thoughtful. Like the comments here about reaching out to alum, like I could have reached out to even more alumni to ask about which electives do you highly recommend. I could have done a better job of reaching out to San Francisco colleagues to ask them the same. I'm really happy with my elective choices, but I think there were a couple classes that I missed out on that I would have really enjoyed.
I maybe will do the opposite, something I don't regret, and that is my second to last semester, I took classes on both campuses. So I was in class every weekend, and that was crazy and ridiculous and also awesome. And I just got exposed to the West Coast classmates, and had a lot deeper relationship with them than I otherwise would have had. And they just had some cool electives offered there that weren't offered at the time on the East Coast. And so I don't regret that. That's one of the best things I did. It was nuts, but it was good nuts.
I'll just add a little bit. This doesn't really answer the question, but I think it's a really great pro tip, especially for San Francisco. This goes back to building relationships with professors. All the professors fly out, and typically Friday night, they're basically trapped there and they're kind of alone. They don't really know that many people. So I'd really encourage you to invite them to dinner. They probably not going to love that I, gave that advice to that many people, but what we would do, basically every school weekend, we'd invite a particular professor with a small group of 4 or 5, and it's a really, really great way to know them. It's basically world-class consulting for free, or for a glass of wine. It was just really, really awesome to get to know them that closely. So take advantage of that.
Yeah, I would say my regrets, I mean, if there's any, it's just, the circumstance we were thrown into with the pandemic and having to be virtual and not experiencing that in-person component of it. Some of the things I regret related to that and just are out of everyone's control. But I think if I could go back and even when we were in person, is just do a better job of reaching forward and backwards to the classes that are coming in and leaving. Just to you have this commonality, just make sure you do a good job of getting to know the cohort that's just about to leave and the cohort that's coming in. It's another layer of networking and camaraderie that you can establish.
Yeah, and Nadia, I know that you participated, as you talk about the blend between East and West, you participated in some of the leadership ventures. Would you share a little bit about that? We have a question.
Yes, I did all the things. I took so much advantage of this program. It was really amazing. Probably should have focused a little more on academics, but I don't regret it. It's all great. I participated in the really fun leadership program. It was basically set up through the Marine Corps, and we got to go to Quantico, where they train all the Marine Corps officers for 24 hours and go through part of the training that they go through. And it was an incredible experience. It was both East and West WEMBA, as well as full-time students. And basically you were there for 24 hours, sleeping in the barracks, crawling through mud, carrying a fake gun, doing all the things. It was really fun, but also it was this incredible experience of being put out of your comfort zone and really being pressure tested, or how you would respond to that. Bonding with your classmates, learning a lot about yourself, and also just really, really fun. Highly, highly recommend that as well.
We have a question because many of you have mentioned that you've made career changes. And Raynell, you mentioned coming back and giving back. So for Dawn, our prior career services director, did any of you lean on career services? What kind of value add did they offer, and how does that translate to what you're doing now?
Erin, I see you reaching for the mute button. Do you want to go first? You go first.
So I did work with Dawn on the Philadelphia campus. Really helpful, really great at drawing out of you. Sometimes your thoughts can be more on your unconscious than your conscious, and you don't have them quite to the place where you can articulate them. Dawn's really good at drawing them forward and helping you articulate them very well, which is a prerequisite to doing well in a job interview. And then Steve on the West Coast. Steve had helped my husband when he was in the program and did some deep personality assessments on him, helped him understand which industries he would be good at, which verticals he would enjoy. And then as an alumni, Steve even helped me out when we were living in California, even though I'm an East Coast alum, and helped me with some resume reviews, some interview prep. And then I've used the board services as well. One of the roles that I was in, we needed to recruit a board member, and Wharton has a team that will help you with that.
Yeah, we want to make sure people realize it's not just while you're in WEMBA. And of course, our career services folks are there for the current students, but they love getting to know you. And once you leave, they know you. And as long as you come back and help them occasionally, they're happy to help you for the life of your career. Mm-hmm.
So what would you all say surprised you most about the program or your classmates?
I could talk about this for 20 minutes at least. I think the most surprising thing for me that I didn't realize going in was the quality of experience my classmates were going to have. And it kind of makes sense when you logically think about it. But I probably learned as much from my classmates as I did from professors in the curriculum, because everyone is pretty deep in their career, very experienced, applying learning every single day right after you gain the knowledge, and also teaching you through their experiences. Like the classroom discussions were incredible. You could tap anybody on the shoulder and ask them questions, and they had a lot to offer. And that was something I didn't think of when I was going into it, but I'm really, really happy that I did that.
I mean, I totally agree with Nadia. I think I'll just try and add something a little bit different, but it seemed like a very intimidating program. And when you arrive, you're like, oh my goodness, all these people are like so intimidating. On my classmates cohort, like that imposter syndrome that Renee mentioned. But I was actually very surprised by how much I could just be myself and belong just as I am and who I am. I think the job that Diane and Barb do to recruit and admit us, that there's almost like a matchmaking component where it's a little bit magical, how they put together a whole class that has so much to offer each other, and all at the same time like really gel and become a unit and become this really belonging group where everybody's showing up and everybody's like putting their best selves forward, and sometimes maybe just themselves, but really being there and being present. I never would have imagined like being myself in the way I am, and maybe like the crazy admissions essay I submitted that I'd get into Wharton, and then when I did and I could belong, and then at the end of the whole thing be like tapped to like interview Sundar Pichai as part of our graduation virtual ceremony. So there's just I agree. You could go on for 20 minutes about all the things I was surprised about, but absolutely the best.
A couple of things I'd like to add quickly. I lived in Salt Lake City and went to school in SF, and travel was a lot less daunting than I anticipated. First couple of times you're kind of uncomfortable, but then honestly it becomes like getting on a bus. You just know you get a rhythm and it just goes on. And typically you're flying with multiple people, so you're sharing Ubers, and it's really easy and convenient, actually, not as daunting as it sounds. And the other thing quickly is how friendly and communicative the admission staff is. 9% acceptance rate at Wharton, scary. But as soon as you reach out to Barb and Diane, they're super open, very happy to help, will be very candid with you about your application, will help you in any way. I just encourage you to reach out to them. They're not as scary as it might seem sometimes.
Thank you, Nadia.
And that's a good point as far as the commute. Some of you may be viewing us from somewhere in the middle of the country. We get a lot of folks from Texas, and they're considering the East and the West. And some people will choose one versus the other because they want to be near people in a similar industry, and some choose it because they don't want to be near the people in a similar industry. It's up to you. Rest assured, as I mentioned, the professors are flying to San Francisco, and they love it. Right? People might think, oh, if I don't go to the home campus, it's going to be diluted. But no, there are definitely advantages to the San Francisco. And it's not like the East Coast students are hanging out at the library. You're on the campus, but you just see the classrooms in the web office and so forth. So you choose what makes sense for you. Sometimes it is the commute that makes the difference, time zones and maybe family members. So yeah, we'll engage you and we'll connect you with someone from each coast so you can hear the different things. And then in year 2, you can mix it up. You're just committing to year 1, and as you heard, in this year 2, when the electives are happening, you can do a mix and match for that year. So it makes it, and I think I liken our students to kids in a candy store. They do want it all, and somehow they make a lot of it happen. And we do want to see you back on campus auditing classes when that's available again.
So right now we're recruiting for our 48th class, and that is one class, two cohorts. So we are one program or one admissions committee. It's just that we take a group in Philly and we take a group in San Francisco. And to Diane's point, you're really just committing to year one, because year two, there's all kinds of flexibility. And those two cohorts cross over multiple times throughout the course of the 2 years. So you really have a larger, it's one big extended family, I should say.
Actually, one area that we didn't get into that someone's asking about is the global piece. You know, if you had the chance to go on a global modular course or the business week, I know, Mercedes, we're going to make that up to you. Hopefully you can take advantage of some of the upcoming things that no school was able to do in the last year or two. So if you can share some of those advantages and why you think that's a value for the program.
My year, I went to, it was the first year that East and West went on international travel together. I went to Indonesia. I think the president of Indonesia or something like that, the vice president, is a Wemba. Diane, am I getting this? I still can't believe it. And so we went to Indonesia to meet the president of Indonesia because he's a Wemba. Of course we did. Like, it just seems so crazy. So that was my global experience. I had never been to that part of the world. While I was there, I went to Singapore as well. I will actually say that it immediately translated into me essentially becoming an international corporate strategy person at Vanguard. Just this little 1 week business trip. I talked about it once I got to Vanguard, and next thing you know, I was leading international corporate strategy projects. I opened an office in a different country and did quite a bit of work in Melbourne, Australia on behalf of Vanguard, and it kind of sparked from my Wimba Indonesia trip. So it was only a week, but it was a very impactful week.
Yeah, I went on a couple of trips as well. We went to Argentina for a week, and again, just to echo that, incredible access. The people we've met with, just very high in the government or really impressive businessmen, different artists. I also went to Israel, where we basically studied their VC ecosystem and infrastructure, and it was also really, really impressive. Lots of learning, lots of access, but also, you know, incredible food, fun travel, and then we kind of did a little trip with classmates after that as well. So I would highly, highly recommend those if you choose to.
I got to do Vietnam and Singapore together. And so, like, you can imagine the really unique experience of seeing two countries on opposite ends of the control spectrum there. From government, but also to see that in both countries, the thing that prevailed in our experience was the human spirit. So when we were in Vietnam, you'd see at 8 o'clock at night, there's still all these buildings that are lit up, and all the locals would say that's women in their 20s who are learning English at night. And they're working during the day and learning English at night because they want to do better for themselves. It was a special experience, and I did it at the end of the program. It's also really nice at the end of the program, you have such deep relationships with your classmates. It feels very appropriate to go on a big global trip with them right before you leave the program, and then only get to see them in less structured and informal settings, or all the weddings that follow the program is also a great opportunity to catch up with people.
Some of the weddings are Wimbas marrying Wimbas. So if anyone's single, there's that option as well. I also will say that one of my Vanguard colleagues who's in Wimba right now is going to Antarctica in a couple of weeks with some of his Wimba classmates. He's told me that there's apparently like a polar plunge where they're jumping in the Antarctic Sea, I guess. So that's where they're apparently going for their international trip. And I didn't ask more questions because I was just kind of shaking my head because, of course, they're going to do the polar plunge in Antarctica.
I do say it's a great place to meet people because you know that they are also, you know, bright and ambitious, and we do our best to admit humble, kind people. So it's a wonderful environment to meet people, and there's never a time that I'm not around Wembas that I don't learn something. So it's such an energizing platform, I think. I talked one time to one of our women who had had a baby during the second year of the program, And she was back, she was back so fast. She was back, I want to say, like next class weekend, weekend after. And I said to her, how are you doing? Do you feel tired? Are you okay? And she said, you would think I feel tired, but she said, I step into this environment and I get supercharged. She's like, there's just so much energy and it's so exciting and so much, just motivation to, she's like, I could just go and go and go the whole weekend through. She's like, then I go home, then I'm tired. But she said, there's so much energy in the room and it's so invigorating being with all of these amazing people that it just keeps you going. So any kind of parting, I think we're getting really close on time here. So any parting tips for our women on the line?
Words of wisdom.
The application process might feel like it is just a lot, but I did it 4 times for 4 different schools. And I think I decided on applying to Wharton within like 2 weeks of the application deadline. And I went to campus, I did my interviews, got it all done. And I would say it's definitely not as hard as it looks like it is from the surface. I also will put in a pitch for the assessment on instead of for the I'm sorry, I'm blanking. It's been 2 years and I'm already blanking. The different kind of exam.
The executive assessment.
Thank you. The EA. Yeah. The executive. I'll make a plug for that. It was a really good experience and something you can study, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, and be ready for.
So I'm just going to add on to that. So we require that everyone take a standardized test, whether that be the GMAT, the GRE, or the executive assessment. And the executive assessment, we only accept that from candidates with 8 or more years of work experience. Otherwise, you'd be looking at GMAT or GRE. And we will take your best score from whichever of those exams you do take. And we're going to look at that relative to your transcripts and your career and so forth. It is a very holistic process. So thanks for sharing, though. That's very doable. We are a week away from the deadline. So that would be from our first deadline, and round 2 is February 9th. So there's definitely still time to apply this year.
I wish I could apply again. This one more time.
I love the phone call you get. Like when Barb picks up that call, you pick up the phone, Barb's on the other line, and she gets to tell you that you got in. Oh my goodness. Like that's part I'd like to redo.
Yeah, I was standing in line at the DMV when I got my call and I started crying in the middle of the DMV. It was a really special moment. So
yeah.
Truly, truly life-changing. Sounds very cheesy, but it is. It changes your perspective on yourself, on the world, everything. It's amazing.
So true.
Any other words?
Yeah.
I'd say I think that in my own personal experience for myself and for my girlfriends, women have a tendency to put other people first. Look, if you're on the call tonight, if you're thinking about doing this, please do this. It is so good for you. It is so good for your family. It is so good for the people at your office who you think that by being gone every other Friday, you're doing them a disservice, and it's the opposite. You're becoming a better leader. You're giving them more opportunity. But like, get out of your head and stop debating yourself and figure out how to make it work and do this.
yeah, I'm having trouble with the final word because just do it is just the only thing that keeps coming out. Just whatever that thing that, it's in your belly right now and you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should do that. Just do it. And then the other thing I would say is you're good enough. So something that Wharton did for me was I didn't even know. I was always a confident person. I walked into rooms and I looked confident, but there was something underneath it all where I wasn't completely myself. And Wharton just taught me that I'm good enough, that I'm smart enough, I'm capable, I'm hardworking enough. So you're good enough, and just do it.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. Amazing. I knew this would be amazing. You guys rock it. We're so grateful for every one of you, and all of your advice that you have shared with the prospective students.
And I'm going to mention we actually in January, we have a new technology. We're going to try it out, and we convinced the folks to let us try it out on WEMBA Alumni, would be the proper term for more than one female alum. So you'll get an invitation, if not later this month, early in January. So anyone who's graduated from the program, any women are going to be invited, and it's just going to be a pure networking event, virtual, with a new technology we're trying out. All right, so we look forward to keeping you engaged that way as well.
Amazing.
Good night, everyone. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.